Admiral Vexus stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at the massive shape on his screens. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he tried to understand what he was seeing. The ship was huge, bigger than anything in his fleet. It hung in space, like a sleeping giant, dark metal gleaming under the light of distant stars. "Sir, we are picking up no signals from the vessel," reported his communications officer, a thin Krathen with nervous twitches in his tentacles. "It appears to be drifting." Vexus nodded, his thick armor plates shifting with the movement. In his 50 years of service to the Galactic Council, he had seen many ships from many worlds. This one was different. It had clean lines and strange angles that hurt his eyes to look at for too long. The metal looked smooth, almost liquid, but he could see weapons ports along its sides. Lots of them. "What do our databases say about this?" "Design?" Vexus asked. "Nothing, sir. The computer has no match for this ship type or the materials it appears to be made from." The Admiral felt a small chill run down his spine. The Galactic Council had records of every known species in there, part of the galaxy. Their databases went back thousands of years. If this ship was not in those records, it meant only one thing. These were newcomers. "Distance to the unknown vessel?" he asked. 20,000 kilometers, sir. Still within our scanning range, but outside weapons range." "Good. Keep us here. Send word to the other ships to form a standard patrol formation. If this is a first contact situation, we will handle it by the book." Vexus had done this before. New species were always the same when they first met the Council. They were scared, confused, sometimes angry. But they always submitted once they saw the power of 30 Council warships. It was simple math. 1 ship against 30 was not a fight. It was suicide. The bridge crew worked quietly, following orders they had practiced many times. The other ships in the fleet moved into position, creating a wide circle around the unknown vessel. Each ship was armed with plasma cannons, missile tubes, and energy shields. Together they could destroy a small moon. "Sir, we are detecting movement," called out his sensor officer. On the main screen, the dark ship began to change. Lights appeared along its hull, soft blue glows that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship slowly turned, bringing what appeared to be its front end toward the Council fleet. "Are they powering weapons?" Vexus asked. "No, sir. The energy readings are strange. I cannot identify what type of power system they are using." Vexus frowned. Strange was not a word he liked to hear during first contact. Strange meant unknown. Unknown meant dangerous. "Open a communication. Channel. Let us see who these people are." The communications officer worked at his controls for several minutes. His tentacles moved quickly over the strange symbols of his keyboard. Finally, he looked up with confusion in his large black eyes. "Sir, they are already broadcasting on our frequency. They appear to know our communication protocols." "What? How is that possible?" "I do not know, sir. But they are sending a message now." The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of the dark ship, Vexus now saw the face of an alien creature. It had only 2 eyes, both facing forward like a predator. Its skin was smooth and pale, with dark hair covering the top of its head. When it spoke, its mouth revealed small white teeth. "Greetings," the creature said in perfect galactic standard language. "I am Captain Lee Do-Yun of the Earth vessel. Indomitable will. We mean no harm and request permission to pass through this system." Vexus was quiet for a long moment. This creature, this human, spoke their language perfectly. It knew their customs enough to ask for permission. But its ship was not in their databases. Something was very wrong here. "I am Admiral Vexus of the Krathen Empire, representing the Galactic Council. Your vessel is unknown to our records. State your point of origin and your purpose in Council space." The human captain smiled, showing more of those strange teeth. "We come from a world called Earth, Admiral. We are explorers seeking to learn about the galaxy and the species that call it home. We had no idea this was Council space. We will, Change course if you prefer. Earth is not in our star charts, Vexus said. How did you learn our language? How do you know our communication frequencies? We are good listeners, Admiral. We have been watching and learning for some time. We prefer to understand before we make contact. Vexus felt anger building in his chest. Watching and learning meant spying. These humans had been in council space before, gathering information without permission. This was a violation of every first contact protocol. Captain Lee, Vexus said, his voice becoming harder. You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your vessel will be searched and your crew questioned. Any resistance will be met with force. The human captain's smile faded. He looked sad, almost disappointed. Admiral, I do not think that would be wise. We have no wish for conflict. Perhaps we could meet on neutral ground instead. Your ship and mine, with small teams. You are in no position to make demands, Vexus snapped. You have one ship. I have 30. You will surrender now or face the consequences. On the screen, the human captain turned to speak with someone outside the camera's view. Vexus could see part of another human, a female with long dark hair. She was wearing the same type of uniform as the captain, dark blue with silver markings. Commander Park Mina, the captain said to the female, what is the status of our defensive systems? All systems are ready, Captain, she replied. Lieutenant Kim Tae-yang reports that their communication systems are easy to monitor. We can hear everything they are saying on their command channels. Vexus felt a chill. These humans could monitor Council military communications? That should have been impossible. Their encryption was the best in the galaxy. The human captain turned back to face the screen. Admiral Vexus, we truly do not want trouble, but we will not allow our ship to be boarded against our will. Please reconsider your position. Captain Lee, Vexus said slowly, you seem to misunderstand your situation. Your single ship cannot stand against a council fleet. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have shields that can stop any attack. You will surrender now or be destroyed. The human was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded, looking resigned. Very well, Admiral. It seems we have reached an understanding. But I want you to know that this choice was yours to make. The communication ended. The screen returned to showing the dark human ship floating in space. It looked the same as before, but somehow Vexus felt like everything had changed. Sir, his weapons officer called out, should we begin the boarding operation? Vexus stared at the human ship. Something about this felt wrong. The human captain had been too calm, too ready to accept the situation. In Vexus's experience, species that were about to be conquered usually showed more fear. No, he said finally. First, we show them what they are facing. Target their engines with a warning shot. Let them see the power of council weapons. Then they will understand why surrender is their only choice. Yes, sir. Charging plasma cannons now. Around the fleet, 30 warships powered their weapons. The space between them and the human vessel began to glow with deadly energy. This was the moment that always ended first contact situations. The moment when new species realized they were not alone in the galaxy, and they were not the strongest. Vexus watched as his weapons officer prepared to fire. One shot across their bow, and the humans would see reason. It was always the same. His finger moved toward the firing button, and Admiral Vexus smiled. Soon, the galaxy would have one more species kneeling before the Council's might. Captain Lee Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will, watching the enemy fleet arrange itself around his ship. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. The bridge was calm, almost peaceful, despite the 30 warships pointing weapons at them. Captain, Commander Park Mina said from her tactical station, their fleet has completed the encirclement. All ships are powering weapons. Lee nodded slowly. He had hoped this moment would not come, but he had always known it was possible. The humans had been watching the Galactic Council for 15 years, studying their behavior, learning their languages, understanding their technology. They knew how first contact usually went with the Council. Any change in their communication patterns? Lee asked. Lieutenant Kim Tae-yang looked up from his station. No, sir. They are still using basic military channels. No encryption that we cannot break. Admiral Vexus is ordering his ships to maintain position and wait for his command to fire. Lee found that interesting. The Admiral was being careful, following proper procedures. That was good. It meant he was not completely reckless, just arrogant. Perhaps there was still hope for a peaceful solution. Dr. Yoon, Lee said to the woman sitting at the science station, what is your assessment of their technology? Dr. Yoon Sumin had been studying alien civilizations her entire career. She was the best xenobiologist on Earth, and she had spent years analyzing everything the humans had learned about the Galactic Council species. Their technology is approximately 200 years behind ours, Captain, she said. Their weapons use simple plasma acceleration. Their shields are basic energy barriers. Their ships are well built but use chemical rockets for propulsion. And their tactics? Standard military doctrine from our own 18th century. They rely on superior numbers and overwhelming firepower. They do not appear to have developed more advanced warfare concepts. Lee was not surprised. The Galactic Council had ruled this part of space for so long that they had become comfortable. When every species you meet surrenders after seeing your fleet, you stop looking for new ways to fight. Tactical Officer Jang, Lee said to a young man at another station. How long have they been the dominant power in this region? Jang Hyun-woo checked his computer screens. According to our observations, the Council has not faced a serious military challenge in over 400 years, sir. The last species to resist them was conquered in 3 days. 3 days, Lee repeated. And how many ships did that species have? 12, sir. All destroyed. Lee understood now why Admiral Vexus was so confident. In his experience, more ships always won. 30. Ships had never lost to one ship because it was impossible. Simple mathematics. But the Admiral did not understand that mathematics change when the rules change. Commander Park, Lee said, please show me the fleet arrangement again. The main screen shifted to show a tactical display. The human ship sat in the center, surrounded by 30 council vessels in a perfect circle. Each ship was exactly the same distance from the indomitable will. Each ship had a clear firing solution. It was a textbook formation for destroying a single target. They are being very careful, Park Mina observed. No ship can hit another by accident. All weapons will converge on our position. Yes, Lee said. Very professional, very thorough. Very predictable. Behind them, the communication console chimed softly. Kim Tae-yang listened to his earpiece for a moment, then looked up with concern. Captain, Admiral Vexus is preparing to fire a warning shot. He believes this will convince us to surrender. A warning shot, Lee said thoughtfully. Across our bow. I assume? Yes, sir. Standard council procedure for first contact situations. Lee walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Admiral Vexus was about to make a decision that would change everything. The Admiral thought he was about to demonstrate the Council's power to a primitive species. Instead, he was about to learn that humans were not primitive. Dr. Yoon, Lee said without turning around. In your opinion, is there any way to avoid conflict at this point? The scientist was quiet for a moment. The Council species have a very rigid mindset, Captain. They see strength only in numbers and firepower. They cannot imagine that a single ship could be more powerful than 30 ships. To them, it violates natural law. So they will not back down. Not until they see something that forces them to reconsider their assumptions about natural law. Lee sighed. He had hoped the Admiral would be more reasonable, but hope was not a strategy. It was time to show the Council that humans understood more than just hope. All stations, prepare for defensive measures, Lee commanded. We are about to be fired upon. "Shields?" asked Commander Park. "Not yet. Let them fire first. I want to record everything for the diplomatic report." Around the bridge, the crew began entering commands into their systems. The indomitable will had been designed for exactly this situation. First contact with a hostile species that underestimated human technology. The ship's computers had been running battle simulations since the moment the Council fleet appeared. "Captain," Jang Hyun-woo reported, "our computers have analyzed their entire fleet. Weapon types, shield frequencies, engine signatures, everything. We have complete tactical solutions for all 30 ships. How long would it take to disable their entire fleet without destroying any ships or killing any crew members?" "Approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds, sir." Lee smiled sadly. 4.5 minutes to end a conflict that had taken years to prepare for. The Council had no idea what they were facing. "Sir," Kim Tae-yang said urgently, "Admiral Vexus is giving the order to fire. His weapons officer is about to pull the trigger." "Understood. All crew, brace for impact. Dr. Yoon, make sure our recording equipment captures everything. The diplomats will want to know exactly how this started." On the main screen, they could see one of the Council ships beginning to glow brighter. Energy was building in its forward weapons. In a few seconds, a bolt of superheated plasma would streak across space toward the human vessel. "Captain," Commander Park said quietly, "once they fire, everything changes." "Yes," Lee replied. "Once they fire, they become the aggressors. Once they fire, we have the right to defend ourselves. Once they fire, Admiral Vexus will learn that being the biggest does not always mean being the strongest." The glow from the Council ship grew brighter. On their communication channels, they could hear Admiral Vexus giving final targeting orders. The Admiral sounded confident, even pleased. He believed he was about to end this confrontation with a simple demonstration of power. "Plasma cannon charged and ready," they heard the Council weapons officer report. "Fire!" Admiral Vexus commanded, and in that moment, as the weapons officer's finger pressed down on the firing control, everything changed. The bolt of plasma erupted from the Council ship and streaked toward the indomitable will. It was a perfect shot aimed to pass just in front of their bow, a warning that could not be ignored. But as the plasma bolt approached the human ship, something impossible happened. The bolt simply vanished. No flash of light, no explosion, no impact on shields. The energy just disappeared as if it had never existed. On 30 Council ships, alarm bells began to ring. "What happened?" Admiral Vexus demanded. "Where did our shot go?" Captain Lee turned to his crew with a sad smile. "Commander Park, activate defensive systems. Lieutenant Kim, open a channel to all Council ships. It is time they understood what they are really facing." The indomitable will began to change. Systems that had been hidden came online. Weapons that had been disguised revealed themselves. And in the space around the human ship, reality itself began to bend in ways that Council science said were impossible. Admiral Vexus was about to learn that the galaxy was much larger and much stranger than he had ever imagined. The plasma bolt vanished without a trace, and for a moment, space was completely silent. On the bridge of Admiral Vexus's flagship, every crew member stared at their instruments in disbelief. The sensors showed nothing. No explosion, no energy. Discharge, no impact at all. The powerful weapon that should have lit up the darkness had simply disappeared. "Report!" Vexus shouted, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "What happened to our shot?" His weapons officer, a young Krathan named Kilos, frantically checked his controls. His tentacles moved over the displays with desperate speed. "Sir, the weapon fired correctly. All systems show normal operation. The plasma bolt left our ship at full power." "Then where did it go?" "I do not know, sir. Our sensors lost track of it when it got close to the human vessel." Vexus felt something cold forming in his stomach. In 50 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. Weapons did not just disappear. Energy could not be destroyed, only redirected. but their plasma bolt had vanished as if it had never existed. Could their shields have absorbed it? He asked his science officer. No, sir, the blue-skinned Zalani replied. Their shields are not even activated. We detect no energy barriers around their ship at all. That is impossible. Nothing can stop a plasma bolt without shields. Yes, sir. It should be impossible. On the main screen, the human ship hung in space exactly as before. It had not moved, had not changed, had not reacted to being fired upon in any visible way. But somehow it had made their weapon disappear. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. The human ship is broadcasting again. The screen flickered and Captain Lee's face appeared. The human looked calm, almost sad. His strange two-eyed face showed what might have been disappointment. Admiral Vexus, Captain Lee said quietly, you have fired upon our vessel. This constitutes an act of war under both your laws and ours. I am required to inform you that we will now defend ourselves. Defend yourselves? Vexus laughed, but the sound was forced and unnatural. With what? You have one ship against 30. You have no shields, no weapons that we can detect. How do you plan to defend against the entire Council fleet? Captain Lee was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Vexus could see other humans working at strange controls. Their equipment looked nothing like Council technology. The displays showed symbols and patterns that hurt to look at. Admiral, the human captain said finally, you are making assumptions based on incomplete information. You assume that because you cannot detect our weapons, we have no weapons. You assume that because you cannot understand our defenses, we have no defenses. These assumptions are incorrect. Prove it, Vexus snarled. Show me these weapons you claim to have. Very well. But remember, Admiral, you asked for this demonstration. The communication ended. On the main screen, the human ship began to change. The smooth metal hull started to shift and move like liquid. Sections that had looked solid opened to reveal strange geometries inside, and from those openings, things emerged that made no sense to Council science. Sir, the sensor officer called out in a shaking voice, I am detecting massive energy buildups from the human vessel, but the energy types are unknown. Our computers cannot identify the power sources. Vexus watched in growing horror as the human ship transformed. What had looked like a simple vessel was revealing itself to be something far more complex. Weapons appeared that defied understanding. They did not look like plasma cannons or missile tubes. They looked like sculptures made of light and shadow, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Sir, his weapons officer reported, the human ship is targeting all of our vessels simultaneously. All of them? How is that possible? I do not. No, sir. But our computers show targeting locks from at least 50 different weapon systems. They are aiming at specific points on each of our ships. Vexus felt panic beginning to build in his chest. 50 weapons against 30 ships meant the humans could destroy his entire fleet. But that was impossible. No single ship could carry that much firepower. The energy requirements alone would be enormous. All ships, evasive maneuvers, he commanded. Scatter formation and return fire. Around the battlefield, 30 Council warships began to move. Their engines flared as they tried to break away from the human vessel. But as they moved, something strange happened. The human ship did not turn to follow them. It did not need to. The weapons that had emerged from its hull moved independently, tracking each Council ship no matter how they maneuvered. Sir, we cannot break their target locks, reported his navigator. No matter how we move, their weapons follow us. Then we destroy them before they can fire. All ships, full bombardment, everything we have. Across the fleet, every weapon that could bear on. The human ship opened fire. Plasma bolts, energy beams, and missiles streaked through space toward the indomitable will. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet, and every shot disappeared before it reached the target. Impossible, Vexus whispered. This is impossible. On. His sensors, he watched 30 ships' worth of weapons fire simply vanish. No explosions, no deflections, no impacts. The energy just stopped existing when it got close to the human vessel. It was as if the humans had found a way to delete matter and energy from reality itself. "Admiral," his communications officer said, in a terrified voice, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They are speaking to every ship in the fleet at the same time." Captain Lee's face appeared on screens throughout the Council fleet. His voice reached every bridge, every crew member, every officer in the 30 ships. "Council fleet," he said, calmly, "you have fired upon us with intent to destroy. Under the laws of war, we are now authorized to use lethal force in our defense. However, we prefer not to kill if we can avoid it. You have 30 seconds to stand down and withdraw your weapons. If you do not comply, we will disable your ships." Vexus found his voice. "You cannot disable 30 ships with one vessel. It defies every law of physics." "Admiral," Captain Lee replied, "your physics are incomplete. You understand matter and energy, but you do not understand space and time. You have learned to move through the galaxy, but you have not learned to move the galaxy itself." "What does that mean?" "It means, Admiral, that you are about to learn something new." The 30 seconds passed like hours. Vexus watched his fleet try desperately to retreat, but the human weapons followed them effortlessly. No matter how fast his ships moved, the strange targeting system stayed locked on. "Time," Captain Lee announced. And then the universe changed. The human weapons did not fire energy or projectiles. Instead, they reached out and touched the fabric of space itself. Reality bent around each council ship like water around stones. Gravity twisted in impossible directions. Time flowed differently in some places than others. One by one, the council warships simply stopped. Their engines shut down, their weapons powered off, their shields collapsed. But the ships themselves remained intact, and their crews remained alive. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Council fleet was dead in space, helpless and defenseless. They had not been destroyed. They had been turned off like children's toys. Vexus sat in his command chair, staring at displays that showed all systems offline. His ship still had life support and artificial gravity, but everything else was gone. They could not move, could not fight, could not even communicate with each other. "How?" he whispered. As if in answer to his question, Captain Lee's face appeared on his screen once more. "Admiral Vexus," the human said gently, "you asked me to prove that we could defend ourselves. I believe we have done so. Your fleet is disabled but unharmed. Your crews are safe. When we are finished talking, we will restore your systems and allow you to leave." "What are you?" Vexus asked. "We are explorers, Admiral. We are scientists and artists and dreamers. We are the children of a small blue world that learned to reach for the stars. And we are very, very good at learning new things." Vexus looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. Every assumption he had made about these humans had been wrong. They were not a primitive species to be conquered. They were something else entirely. Something that could reach out and turn off an entire fleet with weapons that made no sense. "What do you want from us?" he asked. Captain Lee smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine. "We want to talk, Admiral. We want to learn about you and your people. We want to share what we know and learn what you know. We want to be friends, if that is possible. And if it is not possible?" The human captain's smile faded. "Then we will leave you alone, Admiral. We will go back to our own space and pretend this meeting never happened. But we hope that will not be necessary." Admiral Vexus stared at the human on his screen and realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had just changed forever. The silence stretched across space as 30 Council warships drifted helplessly around the human vessel. Admiral Vexus sat in his darkened bridge, trying to understand what had just happened to his fleet. All around him, His crew stared at dead instruments and empty screens. "Sir," his communications officer whispered, "I am detecting new ships approaching. Human ships." Vexus felt his blood turn to ice. If one human ship could disable his entire fleet, what could multiple ships do? On his limited sensors, he watched as 3 more vessels emerged from what looked like empty space. They had not jumped in from hyperspace or flown in from another system. They had simply appeared, as if they had been hiding in a place that did not exist. The new ships were different from the Indomitable Will. They were smaller but somehow more threatening. Their hulls seemed to shift and change as he watched, like metal that was alive, and they moved without engines, gliding through space as if they were swimming through water instead of vacuum. "Admiral Vexus," Captain Lee's voice came through the communication system. "I would like you to meet Admiral Choi Junho of the Earth Defense Fleet. He has come to ensure that this first contact proceeds peacefully." A new face appeared on Vexus's screen. This human was older than Captain Lee, with gray hair and lines around his eyes. But those eyes held the same calm intelligence that Vexus had seen in the other human. And something else. Something that looked like sadness. "Admiral Vexus," the new human said, "I apologize for the aggressive nature of this meeting. We had hoped our first contact with the Council would be more friendly. But you chose to fire upon our ship. Your ship made our weapons disappear," Vexus replied weakly. "How did you do that?" "We redirected the energy to a place where it could not cause harm," Admiral Choi explained. "Your plasma bolts are currently orbiting a dead star about 50 light years from here. They will burn out harmlessly in a few thousand years." Vexus stared at the human. Moving energy. 50 light years away instantly was impossible. It violated every law of physics he knew. "That cannot be done. The energy requirements alone would be massive." "Admiral," said a new voice. On his screen, a human female appeared, beside Admiral Choi. She wore a different uniform, with symbols that looked like equations and star charts. "I am Lieutenant Commander Han Gayung, our electronic warfare specialist. What you call energy requirements, we call creative problem solving." "I do not understand. Your science is based on the idea that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only moved around. This is correct. But you assume that moving energy requires more energy. This is incorrect. If you understand space and time well enough, you can move energy anywhere in the universe without using any power at all." Vexus felt a headache building behind his eyes. "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense," the human female replied patiently. "You just need to think about it differently. Your ships use engines to push against space. Our ships convince space to move around us. Your weapons throw energy at targets. Our weapons fold space so that the energy goes where we want it to go. Folding space is impossible." "No, Admiral. Folding space is Tuesday. Before Vexus could ask what Tuesday meant, his screens lit up with new information. His sensors were coming back online, but what they showed made no sense. The human ships were not just in space around his fleet. They were also inside his ships, outside the galaxy, and in several places that his computers claimed did not exist. "Do not be alarmed," Captain Lee said calmly. "We are simply demonstrating our capabilities so that there are no more misunderstandings. We can be everywhere we need to be, whenever we need to be there." "How many ships do you have?" Vexus asked. "How many do we need?" Admiral Choi replied. "We can build them from empty space if necessary. Matter is just energy that has been convinced to hold still for a while." On Vexus's tactical display, he watched as more human ships continued to appear. They emerged from impossible angles, from directions that did not exist, from distances that were both very far away and very close at the same time. Soon, his sensors showed hundreds of human vessels surrounding the Council fleet. But that was not the most frightening part. The most frightening part was that his computers insisted that there was still only one human ship present. according to his instruments, all the other ships were just reflections or echoes or mathematical possibilities that had been given physical form. "This is not real," Vexus said desperately. "Ships cannot exist in multiple places at once." "Admiral," said another new human voice. A young male appeared on the screen, wearing a uniform with strange rank markings. "I am Sergeant Major O. Sangwoo, commander of our Marine forces. Reality is much more flexible than your people believe. We are not breaking the laws of physics. We are using laws that your science has not discovered yet." "What laws?" "The law that says consciousness can affect matter directly. The law that says time is not a straight line. The law that says space has more than 3 dimensions. The law that says the universe is much stranger and more wonderful than anyone imagines." Vexus looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at the humans with expressions of terror and awe. These creatures had technology that seemed like magic. They could make weapons disappear, disable entire fleets without firing a shot, and exist in multiple places at once. "What do you want from us?" he asked again. Admiral Choi leaned forward, and his expression became serious. "We want you to understand something very important, Admiral. We have been watching your Galactic Council for 15 years. We have seen how you treat species that cannot defend themselves. We have seen how you use superior numbers to force weaker civilizations to submit." "That is how the galaxy works," Vexus protested. "The strong rule the weak. It has always been. This way." "Not anymore," Captain Lee said quietly. "Now there is someone stronger than you. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Vexus was quiet for a long moment. Around his ship, the human vessels continued to multiply and shift and move in ways that made his eyes hurt. He was beginning to understand that this was not just about technology. These humans thought differently than any species he had ever encountered. "Are you going to conquer us?" he asked. "No," Admiral Choi replied immediately. "Conquest is what primitives do when they cannot think of better solutions. We are not primitives." "Then what?" "We are going to offer you a choice," Captain Lee explained. "You can continue to rule your part of the galaxy the way you always have. You can keep using force to make weaker species obey you. But if you do, you will do it knowing that we are watching. And if you go too far, if you become too cruel, we will stop you." "You would go to war with the entire Galactic Council?" "War?" The human looked puzzled. "Admiral, what you just experienced was not war. War is when 2 sides fight each other. What happened here was a demonstration. We showed you that we can turn off your ships whenever we want to. If we wanted to wage war against you, the fighting would already be over." Vexus felt something break inside his mind. For his entire life, he had believed that the Council was the most powerful force in the galaxy. They had thousands of worlds, millions of ships, billions of soldiers. How could one species from one world be strong enough to threaten all of that? "How many of you are there?" he whispered. "On our ships?" "About 20,000, Admiral Choi replied. "On our worlds? About 15 billion. 15 billion against trillions of Council citizens?" "Numbers do not matter when you understand the universe correctly," Lieutenant Commander Han said. "One human with the right knowledge can change the laws of physics for an entire star system. 100 humans working together can move planets. 1,000 humans can make stars dance. And 20,000 humans." Captain Lee smiled that sad smile again. 20,000 humans can make sure that no one in this galaxy ever has to be afraid of bullies again. Admiral Vexus stared at the humans on his screen and realized that the galaxy had just become a very different place. The Council was no longer the strongest power in known space. These humans were not conquerors, but they were something that might be even more dangerous. They were teachers, and they were about to teach the galaxy that there were better ways to live than through fear and force. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready to learn. 3 months after the encounter in the Vega system, the Great Council chambers on Crathan Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive circular hall, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and growls. At the center of it all sat the High Council, 7 beings who had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Admiral Vexus stood before them, his armor polished but his spirit broken. For weeks, he had tried to explain what had happened at Vega. For weeks, the Council had refused to believe him. Ships that could exist in multiple places at once? Weapons that could move energy across the galaxy instantly? It sounded like madness. "Admiral," spoke High Counselor Thex, her massive form looming over the assembly, "you are asking us to believe that a single species has technology that surpasses all of our combined knowledge. This is impossible. I saw it with my own eyes. Counselor, they disabled 30 ships without firing a weapon. They made our attacks simply disappear." "Perhaps your instruments malfunctioned," suggested another counselor, a thin being with too many joints in his arms. "Perhaps these humans used some kind of jamming technology to confuse your sensors." Vexus wanted to scream. He had brought recordings, sensor data, testimony from every member of his crew. But the Council did not want to believe that their supremacy could be challenged by anyone, especially by newcomers from an unknown world. "Honored counselors," a new voice interrupted. Every head in the chamber turned to see a human walking down the center aisle. He was tall and confident, wearing a simple blue uniform with silver markings. Behind him walked 2 other humans, a male and a female, both alert and watching the crowd carefully. "I am Ambassador Shin Daeho of the Earth Colonial Union," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "I have come to address the concerns raised by Admiral Vexus's report." The chamber erupted in shouts and protests. Security guards moved forward, but High Counselor Thex raised one massive hand for silence. "How did you get into this chamber?" she demanded. "This facility is protected by the most advanced security systems in the galaxy." Ambassador Shin smiled politely. "We walked through the front door, Counselor. Your guards were very helpful in giving us directions." "Impossible. Our security would never allow unknown aliens into the Council chambers." "Perhaps you should ask them," the ambassador suggested. High Counselor Thex activated her communication system. "Security Central, report. How did these humans get into the chamber?" The reply came back confused and frightened. "Counselor, what humans? Our sensors show no unauthorized beings in the chamber." Thex looked at her instruments. "According to every scanner, every camera, every detection system in the building, there were no humans present, but she could see them standing right in front of her." "Your technology is impressive," Ambassador Shin said calmly, "but it only detects what it expects to find. We have been in this building for 3 hours, walking through your halls, observing your procedures, listening to your debates. No one saw us because we did not want to be seen." "That is impossible," another counselor protested. "Nothing can hide from our sensors." "Counselor," the ambassador replied patiently, "your sensors detect matter and energy. They cannot detect possibilities that have not yet become real. We exist in the spaces between what is and what could be." Admiral Vexus felt a cold satisfaction, watching the Council struggle with the same confusion he had experienced. Now they were beginning to understand what he had tried to tell them. "What do you want?" High Counselor Thex asked. "We want to talk," Ambassador Shin replied. "We want to explain why we are here and what we hope to achieve. But first, we want to show you something that will help you understand the situation you are facing." The human reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device that looked like a crystal made of light. As he activated it, the air above the chamber floor began to shimmer and change. Images appeared, floating in space like solid holograms. "This is your galaxy as we see it," the ambassador explained. The images showed stars and planets, trade routes, and military bases, all mapped in perfect detail. We have been watching you for 15 years. We know the location of every council world, every fleet, every secret installation. The images shifted and zoomed, showing council military positions that were supposed to be classified. Secret weapons, projects, hidden bases, private communications between council leaders. Everything was laid bare for all to see. You have been spying on us, High Counselor Thex accused. We have been learning about you, Ambassador Shin corrected. Just as you would study any new neighbor before deciding whether they were friendly or dangerous. And what did you decide? The ambassador was quiet for a moment. The images in the air changed, showing historical records of council expansion. Species that had been conquered, worlds that had been destroyed, civilizations that had been enslaved. We decided that you are dangerous, he said simply. Not evil, but dangerous. You use force instead of diplomacy. You take instead of trade. You rule through fear, instead of leading through example. That is the way of the galaxy, another counselor protested. The strong survive and the weak serve. It has always been this way. Not always, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see another human entering the chamber. This one wore a military uniform with more rank markings than Ambassador Shin. She walked with the confidence of someone who had seen many battles and won them all. I am Admiral Moon Chaewon of the Earth Defense Fleet, she announced. And I am here to tell you about the galaxy as it really is. The images above the chamber floor changed again. Now they showed star maps that extended far beyond Council space, regions of the galaxy that no Council ship had ever explored, ancient civilizations that had risen and fallen long before the Council existed. You believe that your council is the greatest power in the galaxy, Admiral Moon said. But you have only explored 12% of the available star systems. You have made contact with less than 3% of the intelligent species that exist. You are not rulers of the galaxy. You are children playing in a very small sandbox. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If the humans were right, then everything the Council believed about their place in the universe was wrong. How do you know this? High Counselor Thex asked. Because we have been exploring the galaxy for much longer than you realize, Admiral, Moon replied. We found evidence of your council in our historical records that are 800 years old. We have been watching you grow and expand, hoping that you would eventually become mature enough to join the larger galactic community. What larger community? The images changed once more, showing vast networks of civilizations that spanned thousands of light years, species that had learned to work together instead of conquering each other. Technologies that made Council science look like stone tools. There are others like us, Ambassador Shin explained. Species that have moved beyond the need for empire and conquest. We trade knowledge instead of resources. We explore together instead of competing. We build instead of destroying. And you want us to join this community? Asked a counselor. We want you to have the choice, Admiral Moon replied. But first, you need to prove that you can change. You need to show that you can solve problems without using force. You need to learn that being strong does not mean you have the right to hurt others. High Counselor Thex leaned back in her massive chair, trying to process everything she had heard. The humans were offering the Council a chance to join something greater than themselves. But they were also making it clear that the Council's current behavior was unacceptable. And if we refuse? She asked. Ambassador Shin's expression became sad. Then we will leave you alone in your small part of the galaxy. We will make sure that you cannot expand beyond your current borders, but we will not interfere with your internal affairs. You can continue to rule through fear, but only over the worlds you already control. You would trap us here? We would protect the rest of the galaxy from you until you decide to grow up, Admiral Moon said bluntly. Think of it as a quarantine, a way to keep a dangerous infection from spreading. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and protests. Many counselors demanded that the humans be arrested or expelled, but High Counselor Thex remained quiet, studying the aliens who had just turned her understanding of the universe upside down. "How long do we have to decide?" she asked. "As long as you need," Ambassador Shin replied. "But remember, Counselor, while you are deciding, we will be watching. And if you try to use force against any species that cannot defend itself, we will stop you." The humans turned and walked toward the chamber exit. As they reached the doors, Ambassador Shin looked back. "One more thing, counselors. We are not your enemies. We hope someday to be your friends. But friendship must be earned, and respect must be given freely. We will be waiting when you are ready to try." And then they were gone, leaving behind a chamber full of beings who suddenly realized that they were no longer the most powerful force in their corner of the galaxy. The question now was what they were going to do about it. 6 months had passed since the humans first appeared in Galactic Council space, and Admiral Vexus barely recognized the galaxy anymore. He stood on the observation deck of the new Joint Species Station at the edge of Council territory, watching, as human and alien ships worked together in ways that would have been impossible just a year ago. The station itself was a marvel of combined technology. Human engineering that could bend space and time worked alongside Council construction techniques that had built empires. The result was a structure that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, while still being comfortable for beings who could only perceive 3. "Still hard to believe, is it not?" asked a familiar voice behind him. Vexus turned to see Captain Lee Do-yun approaching. The human had been promoted to admiral after the first contact incident, and now he commanded the joint defense forces that protected this sector of space. His uniform bore symbols from both human and council military traditions. "Every day," Vexus admitted. "6 months ago, I thought I understood how the galaxy worked. Now, I am not sure I understand anything." Lee joined him at the observation window. Outside, they could see the construction of new ships that combined the best of both civilizations. Council durability and crew capacity merged with human power systems and defensive technology. The results were vessels that could explore regions of space that had been unreachable before. "Understanding is overrated," Lee said with a smile. "Acceptance is more important. You have done well with that, Admiral." Vexus nodded slowly. It had not been easy. Many in the Council still opposed cooperation with the humans. They saw it as surrender, as admission that their way of life had been wrong. But others, like Vexus himself, had come to see it as evolution. "How are the integration programs going?" Vexus asked. "Better than expected," Lee replied. "Dr. No, Wu Jin's research teams have made remarkable progress in combining our technologies, and General Bei Mikyung reports that our joint military exercises are becoming quite effective." Through the observation window, they could see one of those exercises taking place. Human ships that moved like living creatures worked in formation with council vessels that advanced like mobile fortresses. The tactics being developed were unlike anything either species had used before. And the exploration missions? Lee's expression became more serious. "Captain Yang Seohyun's long-range scouts have confirmed what we feared. The signals we detected from beyond the galactic rim are getting stronger. Whatever is coming, it will be here within 2 years." Vexus felt a familiar chill. The threat that had brought humans and council together in the first place was still approaching. The humans called it the Harvest Fleet, ancient machines from another galaxy that consumed all organic life in their path. According to human records, they had destroyed entire civilizations before moving on to the next galaxy. "Are we ready?" Vexus asked. "We are more ready than either of our species would have been alone," Lee replied. "But whether that will be enough?" He shrugged. "We will find out soon enough." A chime sounded through the station, indicating an incoming priority transmission. Both admirals made their way to the command center, where officers from a dozen different species worked side by side at control stations that would have been impossible to operate just months before. "Report," Lee called out as they entered. "Long range. Sensors are detecting massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim," reported a young human officer. "Distance approximately 18 months at maximum speed." "Size of the contact?" "Unknown, sir. The energy output is beyond our measurement." "Capabilities. Whatever it is larger than anything we have ever encountered." Lee and Vexus exchanged glances. They had known this moment would come, but knowing about something and facing it were very different things. "Send word to all Council worlds and human colonies," Lee ordered. "Begin implementation of Defense Protocol 7. All available ships are to report to rally points immediately." As the command center burst into activity, Vexus found himself thinking about how much had changed. 6 months ago, he would have been preparing for battle by gathering the largest fleet possible and planning to overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers. Now he was part of a defense strategy that relied on coordination, adaptation, and technologies that worked by convincing the universe to operate differently. "Admiral Vexus!" a new voice called out. He turned to see Dr. Yoon Somin, the human xenobiologist who had become one of the chief architects of Human Council cooperation. "We need your expertise with Council logistics networks if we are going to move this many ships and supplies. We will need to use every trade route and supply depot in Council space." "Of course," Vexus replied. "What do you need?" As they worked together on the massive coordination effort, Vexus marveled at how natural it had become. Humans and Council members planning strategy together, sharing information freely, trusting each other with their most sensitive secrets. It would have been unthinkable before first contact. "Admiral," another officer called out, "we are receiving transmissions from the outer colonies. They are detecting scout ships at the edge of their sensor range." "Council or human ships?" Lee asked. "Neither, sir. Unknown configuration. They match no designs in our databases." The command center fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Harvest Fleet was not 18 months away. It was already here. "All stations, combat alert," Lee ordered calmly. "Begin evacuation of all non-essential personnel from border colonies. Military units are to establish defensive positions at rally points Alpha through Gamma." "What about the civilians?" asked a Council officer. "They come first," Lee replied without hesitation. "No one gets left behind. Human or Council, we protect everyone." Vexus watched as the greatest military operation in galactic history began to unfold. Ships from hundreds of worlds converged on defensive positions. Technologies that had never been tested in real combat powered up for the first time. Species that had been enemies just months before prepared to fight side by side. "Dao, you think we can win?" he asked Lee quietly. The human admiral was silent for a moment, watching the tactical displays that showed the approaching threat. The enemy ships were unlike anything in their records. They moved through space without engines, changed shape, without technology, and seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. "I think we can try," Lee said finally. "And I think that trying together gives us a better chance than either of our species would have had alone. Even against machines that have destroyed entire galaxies?" "Especially against machines," Lee replied with a slight smile. "Machines are logical. They follow patterns. They expect certain responses to certain situations. But they have never faced anything like what we have become." "What have we become?" Lee gestured toward the command center, where beings from dozens of worlds worked together with technologies that blended magic and science in ways that defied understanding. "Something new," he said. "Something that has never existed before in this galaxy. We are not just humans and Council members anymore. We are something that is greater than the sum of our parts." On the main screen, the tactical display updated to show the true size of the approaching fleet. Thousands of ships, each one larger than a Council dreadnought, moving in formations that hurt to look at directly. They advanced like a wave of entropy, consuming space itself as they moved. But arrayed against them were the combined fleets of two civilizations that had learned to trust each other. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions, weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics, crews that included beings who thought in ways no machine could predict. Contact in 72 hours, the tactical officer reported. Admiral Vexus looked at Admiral Lee and saw determination in the human's strange forward-facing eyes. Around them, the command center hummed with activity as the greatest defense in galactic history prepared to face the ultimate test. "Whatever happens," Vexus said quietly, "it has been an honor serving with your people." "And with yours," Lee replied. "But this is not over yet, Admiral. We have surprises that even we do not fully understand. The machines are about to learn that this galaxy is defended by beings who refuse to accept that anything is impossible." As the two admirals watched their combined fleets take position, the galaxy held its breath. The Harvest Fleet had consumed entire civilizations with ease, but they had never faced a galaxy that had learned to fight with friendship instead of fear, with cooperation instead of conquest. The battle for the future was about to begin, and for the first time in galactic history, two species would face it as one people. In the distance, space itself began to change as the first Harvest ships crossed into the galaxy, but they were not entering an empty frontier or a collection of competing empires. They were entering a space defended by beings who had discovered that the greatest weapon in the universe was not technology or numbers. It was the willingness to stand together when everything was at stake. The war that would determine the fate of all organic life in the galaxy was about to begin, and it had started with one moment, one trigger pulled, one decision to show mercy instead of might. Now they would learn if that decision had been enough to save them all.